Good morning and welcome to our monthly Ninja Skill Booster. My name is Julie. I'm coming to you from Darkingham Land on the Central Coast, north of Sydney, here in New South Wales, and would love to just acknowledge the lands that I come to you from today and all of the lands that you're joining me from as well. Thank you so much, Maria. You're coming from Darug and country and Gundagara people in the Blue Mountains. Wonderful. I'd love to acknowledge elders past, present and emerging and thank them for the care of the beautiful lands on which we work and live. Let's get into it. We're going to talk about leading teams in a hybrid workspace here in 2023. And I'd love to share with you today some insights that we've gathered from some research and also talk to you a little bit about some of our top tips on how we feel is a great way to approach leadership in this new environment. My details, if those of you haven't met me, my name is Julie. I'm a ninja here at Think Productive. We're a team of ninjas that are really passionate about helping you to remain productive and balanced, get a real sense of well-being as we go about our day. Please feel free to keep in touch with us. Our socials are a great way to just grab a few top tips as well, so feel free to connect with us there. And as an organisation, we are really passionate about helping everyone to love Mondays. I know that sounds really strange, but you'll see why that's so relevant today as we get into some of the research that I want to share with you. Please make sure you do keep in touch. And for those of you that have spent some time with us before, some of these concepts might be kind of flavors that you've heard about before, but I'm hoping that I'll just jog a few thoughts today that will give you even more insights into this kind of area of leadership as we think about it in context of hybrid. What we're going to cover, I'm going to take you through some new insights that we've gathered from a Gallup research paper that's just been launched in the last month or so around global insights for 2023. There are specific Australia, New Zealand insights within the report, which is fabulous, and I'm going to share that with you. And we're going to just reflect on those insights around our leadership and how we can move forward into becoming great leaders, or I'm sure lots of us are already amazing leaders. How can we just tweak that even more in context of hybrid working? And I did mention I want you to do some action planning in this session. So I'm going to give you a little bit of space and time to do the thinking around. So what am I going to do now? We did a similar session to this last year around about this time. So it's interesting to see the changes in the insights that are coming through. But we looked there at the work that came from PwC in 2022. They had researched, I think their research sample was in 2021, so it was still in COVID, and they looked at some really interesting areas. They talked about getting very specifically about knowing our people and beware of averages. That was their key message. It was about, really making sure that we understood where our people were at, what they wanted, and how they were feeling about the situation that they were in. And they segmented the population quite nicely into some really key segments that allowed us to think about how we can support different kinds of people. We also looked in that research at rethinking the role of the office. And I know at that stage, we were trying to encourage people to come back to the office after being completely remote. And they talked about creating spaces and ways of working. And we like to think of that as with a bit of unorthodoxy, one of our ninjas. We like to get people to think creatively about how can you encourage people back? How can you make sure that this is relevant? And we still hear this right now, having things like anchor days where, everyone agrees that that's probably a day they'll be in the office. Maybe it's a Wednesday, midweek, and that other hybrid days, whether we're working remotely or working in the office, are more flexible. It's a great opportunity to think creatively when we think about how do we set up an office space in this new landscape. We also mentioned in this research, inspiring our leaders to lead. And this is the theme that's going to come through very strongly in the Gallup research, and I'll show you why in a second. If you want to check out the PwC stuff, they have a whole part of their website now where they regularly update reports on the future of work. It's a really useful place to be. But the Gallup research is where I really want to focus today, and I'm going to spend a bit of time with you talking about these insights. I'm not going to take up the whole half an hour because I want to get into some great tips for you, but I did want to touch on some really interesting things that they've kind of discovered as they've gone into this research. So as I mentioned, this is a global study. They've given us some really key insights up top. Focus on your most winnable employees. And I'll show you some of the data behind this. Nearly 6 in 10 employees are what they call quietly quitting. Scary fact if you are leading teams right now. Scary fact, quietly quitting. But they're most likely to be engaged with a few changes to their workplace. And I'm going to talk about some ideas around them. But this is the one that I really wanted to focus in on, and Gallup have some great research behind this too. Give them a better manager, give them a better leader. In the past 3 years, Gallup have used their science. They do obviously a lot of training in this area too. They've trained 14,000 managers to be effective coaches. 9 to 18 months later, their team's engagement ranged from 8 to 18% higher. And that's really important to think about, increasing engagement. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a second too. Now, I'm just going to pop in the chat box. Here is a link to the Gallup research. I'll do that right now. I'll do that during the session as well. If you'd like to get more insights, I'm only going to just touch on the surface of some of the key things that I thought were very interesting, but there's a lot more detail in there. And depending on the region that you're coming from, whether you have teams that are global, in other areas of the world, they have very specific global context for different regions. So please feel free to tap into that. The first thing I wanted to talk about was engagement levels. It's the highest they've seen. Very interesting. The percentage of employees thriving at work reached a record high in 2022, 23%. And Australia and New Zealand is bang on at the same level at that 23%. So that's a really interesting statistic. So we've got a portion of the population, almost a quarter, that are engaged, feeling passionate, feeling really in line with your vision and your mission, and excited about the objectives and working towards your company's vision. However, when we look a little bit more deeply, when we get into the details of what about the other 3/4, what we see is that 59% globally are not engaged. They are what we call quiet quitting. 18% are loud quitting. These are the people that are actively disengaged. They're looking for roles elsewhere. They are really almost acting in counter to your goals and your vision for your business. They can be quite destructive. Whereas the quiet quitters, they may not be actively looking for roles, some of them may be, but they are really not engaged. They're not helping you towards your objectives, your vision, in the way that you would hope most of your employees would be. Now, the really scary thing is if you look at the number on the right-hand side of the screen, in Australia and New Zealand, that number is actually 67%. It's a huge proportion of our workforce that are feeling this way. So it's very important to think about how do we re-engage these people? How do we ensure that our teams are feeling the passion and the energy? I guess the really awful thing too here we'll come on to is that it's not just maybe the people that we're managing, but also some of us as managers are feeling this way as well. How do we re-engage ourselves? How do we ensure that we are feeling like we're ready to lead? This is also a very startling statistic, and one that is probably not surprising. We're hearing a lot of press around this, that although we've come through this pandemic, the worst pandemic we've ever seen in our lifetimes, employees are still seeing a lot of stress in their day-to-day. And this question was around, did you experience the following feelings during a lot of yesterday? How about stress? 44% of people globally are saying that they felt stressed for a lot of their day. And in Australia and New Zealand, that's 47%, again above the average. This is really important. It's important for us as leaders, as managers, even as just employees to understand and know that stress is a big part of our day. It's why we're so passionate about talking about stress in our productivity sessions. You cannot be productive when you are operating from a level of stress. It's so important to get this under control. So think about this in context of your employees. Do we regularly talk about this? Do we regularly, take a break away from the desk, away from the office, away from even if we're sitting at desks at home, and engage with each other in these conversations about how are we doing today? The daily stress, this is really interesting, and I want to point this out. It's not correlated to work location, okay? The level of stress correlates, though, extremely strongly to our engagement level. Hence why I was mentioning engagement up front. So you can see here, there's lots of stats behind this. Go and have a look at the report. Really important to see whether you are working fully remotely, in a hybrid fashion, or completely on site. In every case, location is not the key factor here. It's about engagement level. And I'm just going to highlight, I wanted to read out a little bit of the kind of key summary insights that came from this research. Much has been made about the pros and cons of remote, hybrid, or fully on-site work. Some employees find working from home more conducive to focused work, while others find their focus better in the office. The office remains a gathering place for social bonding, development, and culture building within organisations. But the flexibility of remote working allows for greater autonomy and well-being, which today's workers highly prize. With all that said, Gallup analysis finds that engagement has 3.8 times as much influence on employee stress as work location. In other words, what people experience in their everyday work, their feelings of involvement and enthusiasm, matters more in reducing stress than where they are sitting. And the last point is the important bit. Leaders need to ask if remote work performance or poor hybrid work performance is a location problem or a management problem. No location can fix poor management, and the office alone has no magic to create organisational culture. I thought that was a really interesting part. Grace, we record the session and it will be online. We will send you all a follow-up email with the recording of this. So if you'd like the slides, you can have a look at those in the recording, and you can see some of these research insights as well. Here's another really important bit. These are the sort of two key takeouts that I took from it. That the quiet quitting employees are our low-hanging fruit. These are the guys where we will get our biggest productivity gains. They are the easiest. They are ready to be inspired and motivated. These are the people we really want to focus in on. They're such a large proportion of our workforce. And this is fundamental. The manager is the linchpin of engagement. 70% of team engagement is attributable to the manager. But many or most of our managers are quiet quitting too. They're waiting for the tools to build great teams. The good news is that cutting-edge, science-based management can be taught. And there are many organisations out there helping us with that. And we are doing some of that work too ourselves, which we are absolutely loving. So yes, fascinating research. I'm going to pause, breathe just for a second, and let you just digest that. So important to think about as leaders. How do we show up? How do we empower our teams? How do we help them have the right tools and skill set in order to get productive, to get their work done, but in an environment that's highly engaging, fun, inspiring, motivating to come to work every day? Ultimately, that's what we as an organization love to do. So, as a hybrid leader, what can you do right now? I'm going to get into some top tips. I hope that research was useful for you. Again, please feel free to jump on, read the full report. There's lots of other insights there. I've just popped the link again in the chat box if you missed it. Really worth downloading that one and getting into it in a bit more depth. Yeah, some great thinking there. So here are our top tips, our top 5 tips for leading hybrid productivity to really help you think about where should I focus first. The first top tip is know your people. Know them really well. Get to understand who they are. Know what they love. Know what they're not so good at. Know what they don't like. Really figure out what is it that motivates them. And if you have opportunities to help them explore from a development point of view, figure it out. Go down and chat with them. Spend time with them. Know what who their family are. Know what they do in their spare time. Yeah, this is really critical. Really getting deep. Understanding each other really helps us to then be able to manage them well not just for culture, not just for connection, not just to say, hey, I know that their kids' names are Fred and Joe, but that we know meaningfully what that means to them in terms of how to engage them. What is it that they would love to get from their workplace? It's not just about, as we said, location. Great to have a hybrid working policy and give them flexibility, but what more can we do? How do we get to do that on a really granular level? I'd also really encourage you, number 2, is to build a culture of trust. We want to create this cultural lubricant that helps everyone to feel trusted, to feel engaged and connected. And that comes from really understanding our people and also understanding that as a leader, we need to think about our control. Do we have a sense that, oh, if I can't see them, I don't know where they are, I don't know what they're doing? I'd really encourage you to think about this. How do you feel about letting a team have a little bit more freedom and autonomy to do the work that you know they're capable of, that you know they are out there passionately engaged in? Let the reins go a little bit. I'd love for you to think about this in context of control. We've shared this in a couple of Ninja Skill Boosters before. We talk about this in our leadership programs, in our leading hybrid teams workshop as well. This idea of, we need this Goldilocks control approach. We need to get to this middle point, because if our control is too tight, we end up being a micromanager. We end up trying to manage everyone's workload, and that makes you really unproductive. So think about this. How can I manage this spectrum of control? If we have too loose control, then our team can feel abandoned. So we don't want to just go, hey, go off, do what you want, no problems at all. We want to get this Goldilocks moment, this just right moment. Think about this in context of your team. You may find, if you think about the individuals in your team, some of them might need tighter control. Some of them might need looser control. And in context of even projects, the work that you're doing, some projects might need tighter control. Others might be more free and easy. So think about this in different layers. It can really help us work through, okay, where do I need to invest my time and energy? So really encourage you to think about control when you're thinking about building trust. If you have a team of really experienced, awesome individuals and you're micromanaging them, they're not going to feel you trust them at all. And likewise, if you have those that are maybe needing support from you, needing you to actually step in and help them, and you completely abandon them, I'm not suggesting anyone does, but if we take it to the extreme and we go down that level, they're not going to feel trust in you either. They're not going to feel you really care about them deeply. So yeah, I hope that helps just thinking about this. One of the important things to think about when we're trying to build trust is to give control gently. I would recommend, if you want to know a little bit more about control, watching the replay of our delegation Ninja Skill Boost that we did a couple of months ago. We talk a little bit there about some models around how to delegate well, and I'm going to touch on that today as well. But building trust is really important. This jar of marbles is a really great analogy from Brené Brown, the idea that every day we can go and look for opportunities to build trust. And each time we have a conversation, we have an opportunity to maybe delegate well to one of our team members, we add a marble in the jar, and this jar of marbles builds our trust. But remember that one slight thing can actually mean that we grab a whole handful and take those marbles out again. We can lose trust very easily. So it's important to be thinking about how do we regularly touch base with ourselves when we're thinking about building trust. So that's a really key one. Number 4 is, as leaders, we need to be picking the right things. So we need to be working on the right work, being able to prioritize, being able to organize our teams and guide our teams in what the right work is. Because we know we all have way too much to do, yeah? We have way too much to do as leaders, our teams have way too much to do. We need to be encouraging them to help us manage that workload, but we need to realize that, yes, stepping away and focusing on the right things is critical here. One of our ninjas, Grace Marshall in the UK, talks about, trying to do everything ruins your productivity. It's like that micromanagement stuff, yeah? If we try to micromanage everything, we get very little done. And the second reality here is that we do live in this interruption-heavy environment. Again, we've shared a couple of these insights before. The more we react, the less we do. And that the channels that we use for our work, things like our Teams environment, lots of us, most of us are on Teams now, that can be really difficult to manage when we're looking to be collaborative, we're looking to help everyone to get their great work done, but it also interrupts us and takes our focus away. So we need to find ways to overcome that. One of the key ones we often talk about, again, I know some of this might feel, if you're coming to our Ninja Skill Boosters regularly, and I know quite a few of you are, we've got a lot of common techniques and tools here. We want to keep reiterating these because they're important to practice. Focus on that 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle, the P's. We want to focus on the 20% of pea plants that are going to give us 80% of next year's crop. We want that 20% of things that we do to give us the 80% of the impact. So make sure you're taking time to step back as a leader, do your boss thinking, really focus in on what's important, what's going to give us the best approach. And my last little tip for you today is to think about delegation, this idea of creating an organization of thinkers. It really is important when we're thinking of leading in the hybrid workspace, is being a great delegator is so important. Again, rewatch the delegation skill booster if you want to really focus in here, but I just want to remind you of some really key points. When we focus on delegating well, it frees up our time and our focus to work on great outcomes. It also allows us to create this growth mindset to improve the skills and development of our whole team, which again boosts engagement. If we are giving them the opportunities that they so desire, then we're able to create leaders that are coming up through our ranks. We have a succession plan there. It really helps us. And when we delegate really well, we do establish this culture of trust. It's absolutely critical. And I will mention this again because I know I had this as my title of this section, but we build an organization of thinkers. We are not just doing the thinking for everyone else. We don't anymore stand around often and say, you do this, you do this, you do this. We expect our team of knowledge workers, which most of us are, to be thinking for themselves. And we need to empower them to do this. So very much encourage you, really think about how can I delegate and ensure that that is really using my resources well. It's allowing us to be more productive. I'm not being a blocker when it comes to just holding on to everything. And it allows us to develop these wonderful skills in our team. Particularly in the hybrid environment, these things are critical. And when you think about this on a spectrum of reactive versus proactive, this is how we start to move towards the proactive end. We take away the need for reactivity and just doing the loud, shouty things, the busyness that comes across our desk, spending all day in our inbox, and we start to focus in on the things that are important, the proactive things. Awesome. There are our top 5 tips. I wanted, though, to pause. We're going to get very squishy on time, but I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I want you to just spend 2 minutes to think about what will you do now? What will you do now? Some time for personal reflection. I'm going to set my timer for 2 minutes. And if you, during that 2 minutes, would like to pop something in the chat box to help embed that learning for you, the thoughts that you've gained from this very quick run through on this area, please pop them in the chat box. So I'll set my timer now. 2 minutes. Ready, set, go. And that is our 2 minutes. Goodness, it goes fast, doesn't it? Thank you so much. The comments, I'm going to read some of these. They are brilliant. Thank you so much. The things that you're going to do as a result of the session today. So Julianne, allocate time each day for focus, e.g. on what the priorities of my work are and what I can or should delegate. Beautiful. And Tim, thanks for joining. Focus on empathizing to help build trust within and between teams in the organisation. I shall revisit Know Your People, Lita. Wonderful. And Ciro saying, empower my team. Wonderful. Laura saying, trust others, prioritise my tasks and encourage others to think for themselves. Yeah. Georgie saying, always good to keep the 80-20 rule in mind. And Georgia, I want to stop feeling guilty when I delegate. I find it hard to decide whether as a leader I'm doing enough or too much. It's really common, Georgie. Yeah, Georgia, sorry, not Georgie, Georgia. And yes, Carla, delegate more, spend time with the quiet quitters to help improve their engagement. Wonderful. And Maeve saying, get to know my people well and understand what motivates them, build trust, empower my team, and delegate in a way that creates free thinking. Fantastic. Kim, yes, please do revisit the Delegation Ninja Skill Booster. We do have all the recordings on our YouTube channel, so feel free to tap into those. Gulnaz is saying, to-do list, ask if I need assistance or clarity, trust and appreciate the valuable opinion. Wonderful. Hong is saying, empower team members to motivate. Yes. How to identify the quiet quitters? Yeah, good question, Vivian. Really interesting. Dig into that research. I would recommend that. Have a little bit more of a look on that. And just start maybe chatting with your team. Find out, see if you can identify them very carefully. Yeah, regular catch-ups with the team, Jennifer. Yeah, Rachel saying consider communication. Wonderful. And pick the right things. Readjust priorities to be more proactive instead of so reactive. Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. That's really wonderful to see you all thinking deeply on those areas. Okay, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for joining. If you need more support in this area for you and your team, we have 2 workshops I would recommend. Our Productivity Ninja's Guide to Hybrid Working is a wonderful one for everyone. And we also have a Leading Hybrid Teams workshop, which will be really fabulous if you'd like to dig in further. We also have a heap of leadership programs to help empower and train our leaders and our managers so that they can help others, things like even coaching to empower. So I also wanted to just mention a couple of quick things before you whiz off. Our next free Ninja Skill Booster is going to be a really cool, fun one that Matt will run, which is all about Ninja Tech. We're going to take you through our favorite Ninja apps to help you with some things that might help get you going a little bit more even on your productivity than you are already. I've got a quick surprise competition for those that are still on the line. If you haven't left already, we would love to give away a spot on our upcoming 6 Weeks to Ninja program. If you would like to join us for this program and grab a free spot, then please email us. I'm actually popping in the chat box the details as well. So please feel free to email us at hello@thinkproductive.com.au. Put the subject line as 6 Weeks to Ninja and tell us in one sentence why you want to be a part of that program. And we're going to draw that today at 3 p.m. So you've only got today to do that. Get involved, and we would love to see you on our next 6 Weeks to Ninja program. It is an amazing program that really helps to get everyone really firing on all cylinders when it comes to being a productivity ninja. Thank you so much. I hope that was useful for you all. I'm going to stop the recording and I'm going to send you on your way. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and please stay in touch with us. If there's anything you need, please have a chat. And yes, thank you so much. Thanks for all the thank yous in the chat box. If anyone has any questions and needs to stay on, I can stay for a couple of minutes. So please